everybody? Welcome back to another episode of State Champs eSports. This is Denver, and today I'm playing yet another Atari 2600 game. This is the classic Missile Command port of the coin-op version of the Atari arcade game. The object, as you can see, is to shoot the missiles coming down at the 6 cities that you have at the bottom of the screen. You've got 10 missiles, is that correct? That you can fire. Looks like it might be more than that. And as you can see, if you double up and try to maximize your fallout from the explosion to get multiple missiles, that is for the better. Doesn't always work out that way, but so for example, if I can get these two, I got the one at least. The other thing is you can't overshoot. You don't want to go too high like I just did right there. And you got to protect your silo of missiles. You don't want to have that destroyed. You can have a city or two destroyed. Actually, you could have all 5. You just need one city standing to advance to the next stage. And the further you go, as far as advancing to the next level, obviously the more missiles you have coming down and the faster they come. So really the key is to just move around as quickly as possible. Don't overshoot anything. It's always better to undershoot because the fallout range is usually pretty good. Oh, okay. Phew, dodged a figurative bullet on that one. Let me just get through one round here, or one full game. Looks like there's 2 coming there. Okay, that's the perfect spot to, when they're close like that, to try to double up. Now, that one missile I could have let go and not worry about it because it's aiming right for a city that's already been destroyed. So if it makes impact, it doesn't really matter. Alright, we got a quick one there. Uh-oh, we got to protect. Oh boy. Coming fast and furious. Wow, I lost a lot of cities on that one. Gotta protect at all costs. I guess I don't need that middle one. Oh, I was completely wiped out. Almost made it to 10,000. Not too bad. Well, now since there's a little break in the action, now's the perfect time to talk about our sponsors. As always, got to give a big shout out to Lawrence Technological University in Southfield, Michigan, for being the presenting sponsor on the show. You can go to their website, ltu.edu, for more information. They've got a great game art design program. They've got a varsity team, eSports varsity team that they're looking to launch in the fall. And they've been a big sponsor of our high school League of Legends and Rocket League competitions that we've hosted over the last 4 years. We have a League of Legends tournament going on right now, as a matter of fact. Teams are still playing, obviously, because eSports are one of the few remaining sports or high school activities, well, pretty much at any level, activities that are still going on with the quarantine in full effect. And it's kind of fitting that we're playing a game about the annihilation of cities by another superpower. Missile Command came out in 1980 at the height of the Cold War, which was all about Russia and the United States kind of having a showdown with nuclear weapons, and this game really plays into those fears in a big way. If you remember the movie with Matthew Broderick and Dabney Coleman, War Games, it was about a high school hacker basically getting into the U.S. hacking his way into the nuclear defense missile program, and he went, "Do you want to play a game?" So that was very much in the foreground of everyone's minds in that period. I grew up at that time, and I remember doing duck and cover drills for not only tornado warnings, but in the case of a nuclear attack. So this was a very real thing that we lived in fear of. There was a miniseries on TV called The Day After, or maybe it was just a movie, I can't remember. And it was all about nuclear holocaust. And so, to me, it always seemed rather grim that they're making this fun video game about it. Interestingly enough, the original version of the game started out as a coin-op arcade game, and when it was ported over to the Atari 2600, they removed any reference to, even though I don't think there was any overt references in the arcade game, they did in the directions of the 2600 game, they did make sure to specify that this was on an alien planet and that these were warring aliens fighting each other. Oh, I got to 11,000. Not too bad. Did I get a free guy? Yes, I did. Thank you very much. All right, gotta protect that city at all costs. That's my only remaining city. As a matter of fact, before the game was released, while it was being developed, the original designer actually envisioned these 6 cities at the bottom of the screen to be 6 California cities along the coast where obviously he lived, so it was very personal to him. Oh, I just hit the dust. At least get a little extra bonus point for that one. Did I die? Yep, I'm done. And again, since I'm taking a little break here, let me finish thanking the rest of our sponsors. U.S. Army Michigan, or just Army Michigan, is another big sponsor. So you can visit their Twitch channel. They've got a big eSports program going on, so you can check them out. And then, of course, last, definitely not least, is Hungry Howie's. They're famous for flavor. They are open for business, taking orders, so go online and order your pizza and salads and all the other great food that they have. Go pick it up and eat pizza and play video games. Not much else to do right now while we're all stuck at home. Now, this was a game that I actually owned. If you've listened to any of the previous episodes, I kind of started the very first episode by explaining how I got my Atari 2600 that I won in a contest, and played all the arcade games at home. All the games that I loved, I was able to finally play at home. And really became quickly addicted to video games. And this was definitely one of my favorites. And it's also a lot of other people's favorites, because apparently this is, if I'm not mistaken, the 4th biggest selling Atari 2600 game. It actually beat out Space Invaders, which I think is a game that I probably played more often and enjoyed more. But this one is a classic nonetheless. And I think one of the things that I and probably a lot of other people really liked about it is that it's not terribly different from the arcade version. A lot of ports for cartridges just didn't translate well, such as Pac-Man, which we've talked about. Ooh, I lost the signal. Darn it. Ooh, I got another one coming from the base. Oh, I lost another city. Ooh. Save that one. Let's see if I can save this one. Yes. Okay. Very good. Yeah, it sold 2.5. I'm just looking at some notes here. Looks like it sold 2.5 million cartridges. So that's a lot. That, I believe, is just behind Asteroids. And it also is a really well-reviewed game. Unlike Pac-Man, which I believe is the highest-selling arcade or cartridge for Atari. But that one was just savage for how bad the port was. But like we talked about with Asteroids last night, this was an Atari original, just like Asteroids, so I would assume that's one of the reasons why the port was so good. Oh, I just died. One of the cool things about the game is that there is a very early Easter egg. If you make it to the 13th level and you do all these crazy things, you can actually find the designer for the cartridge version. You can find his initials RF embedded on the screen. Rob, and I'm hoping I'm saying this right, Rob Fulop is the designer's name, and so you see that RF. And I believe that is one of the very first Easter eggs. I think Adventure, if I remember correctly, actually is the official first video game to ever have an Easter egg. But this one's right up there with it. Now the arcade version came out in 1980. And the cartridge version for the 2600 was 81. So pretty much right on the heels, they went from arcade to porting it over to cartridge. And of course, like any successful game, like we've been talking about the last few nights, there were, of course, many sequels and remakes. As a matter of fact, there was, as recently as the Xbox 360, a version of Missile Command, which obviously looks nothing like this. It's the same basic structure. You're on the land trying to protect your bases or cities. And of course it has all the great graphics that you would expect from a modern day console. I think there was a sequel that was worked on but never actually released. It, with all the different gaming systems that came out over the years, all you had to really do is just keep updating the graphics and sound. Ooh, I lost last one to keep it fresh for whatever the latest and greatest console is. Little trivia, the guy that designed the arcade version of the game is also the same guy that designed the great game Tempest. And it was the same year, so talk about having a 1-2 punch. That guy was at the top of his game, if I must say. Alright, 2 down, 2 down. Uh-oh. There we go. Let's see if I can... I think I got 11,000 on the last game, so let me see if I can beat that here. Speaking of games, there's a couple world records associated with this game. Back in 1981, there was a 30-hour marathon game played on the stand-up arcade version. That was done down in Florida, which doesn't surprise me because there's a lot of crazy people down in Florida. So that would sounds like something that they would do, or someone down there would do. Okay, looks like I got a free base coming up on the next floor, just past 10,000. And then many years later, in 2013, that world record of 30 hours was shattered by a guy playing the game on Twitch. He was streaming for 56 hours straight. I don't even know how that's possible. I'm going to state right now, there's no way I would ever be able to play any game 56 hours straight, especially Missile Command. Nothing against Missile Command, but it just was one that I love playing, but not my favorite. If I were to play any game for that long, it might be Asteroids or Frogger even, but yeah, definitely not Missile Command. Alright, well, I definitely shattered my last game's high score. Let's see if I can keep this going for another board, another round. I guess the one good thing about having only one city remaining is you don't have to worry about covering as much ground. You just gotta really protect that city. Okay, another free guy. Another free city restore. Okay. These guys are coming in hot. Oh, there went my free city. That is the difficulty about this game, is splitting your efforts. Oh, shoot. I am done. Oh, boy. Let's see if I can at least keep my base going. Nope. Well, 24,000, not too shabby if I do say so myself. Alright, let's do at least another round here. Now, one of the things I always like to talk about is the pop culture impact that a game has. Now, this one wasn't quite as big as, say, Pac-Man or Frogger, but nonetheless, there was still some great references in various movies and TV shows. I believe one of the first was a reference to the game in the show Barney Miller. Probably not a lot of people, at least not a lot of younger people, have seen that show, but that was a great kind of comedy cop show that had just an amazing theme song. But anyway, there's also a really good reference to the game in Terminator 2, one of the great action sci-fi game or movies of all time. John Connor, the main character of the movie, is playing the game, which is appropriate because the movie was all about nuclear war and preventing nuclear war, which is essentially what you're trying to do in this game. Well, it looks like the war has already started, so I don't know if preventing is necessarily the right word. But you're trying to protect cities anyway from nuclear missiles, which is what John Connor and his mother Sarah and Arnold were trying to do. I forgot to mention Fast Times at Ridgemont High. They used some graphics, I believe, for the end credits of the movie, or at least near the end of the movie. So that was probably the first movie reference for the game. Now, if you haven't seen that one, that is a classic 80s comedy, one of the best comedies. Not because it was funny, but because it also had a lot of heart and could get serious. It was kind of like an R-rated John Hughes movie, if you will. Whereas John Hughes could get kind of silly and slapstick. Fast Times was a little bit darker and edgier. And apparently there's a documentary called High Score, which I had never heard about before. I gotta check it out. It was released in 2006. And it's all about a guy trying to beat the high score of Missile Command. Now, of course, once we get to the Donkey Kong episode for us, we gotta talk about, is it King of Kong, I believe? Just a great documentary featuring the infamous Billy Mitchell and his kind of rivalry with the other top Donkey Kong players. Got it. All right. And supposedly there is going to be a movie made about Missile Command, at least at one point. I don't know if that project has died or not, but they were going to do, feature-length film. I think Fox Studios maybe was producing it or distributing it. So I'll look and see if I can find any more information about that. I believe it's been several years since there's been any news, so I have a feeling cooler heads prevailed because, I don't know, Missile Command movie. Unless they went with the Atari 2600 version where it was all about aliens, you could get away with that. But if you're doing a Cold War, protecting cities from nuclear annihilation, I just don't know how fun that's going to be to watch. Oh, shoot. That looks like I am done for. Alrighty, well, thanks a lot, everybody, for watching. I'm glad you're tuning in to these, and if you have any suggestions on games that you'd like me to play in future episodes, just leave them in the comments. And always, I have to thank once again Lawrence Tech, Army Michigan, and Hungry Howie's for their support. So do me a favor and go out and support them. Again, my name is Denver, and you've been watching State Champs eSports. We'll see you tomorrow.